I feel like there's layers of transformationality to it of like, wow, we've really done what we wanted to do. And then, wow, we did the next layer.
Welcome to the Manufacturing Transformed podcast, where we dive deep into the world of manufacturing and uncover the transformational journeys of companies that are powered by ProShop. Get ready to explore the stories behind the machines, the people, and the innovations shaping the future of this industry. Welcome to Manufacturing Transformed. Real shops, real stories.
Wesley, welcome to Manufacturing Transformed. It's great to have you here.
Hey, it's great to be here.
So you and I got to meet each other in person just a couple of weeks ago now at the EBITDA Growth Systems Summit down in North Carolina. And, I used to say that I used to know every single customer of ours, and we've gotten to the point now where I don't. So we met each other and you're like, yeah, I'm a customer. I'm like, oh, really? Cool. Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Tell me about the business and then your involvement, and we'll start there before we kind of get into the rest of it.
Sure. So it starts with my parents. So in 1996, my dad was a machinist, was very good at it, understood programming, machining, all of that. My mom was a Bloomsburg graduate who did marketing and sales and then also some business stuff. So she's like, I've got the business stuff, you've got the machining stuff. And they wanted to start a company. So he said, I'm going to buy a CNC machine, and if you can fill it for 3 months, I'll quit my job. And she did it. She, cold called, Yellow Book. It was the 90s, so you don't have all the tools you have today. And they managed to grab a few customers. There was a lot of scraping by, hey, give us some work kind of situation as when you're starting off. So they started that. Me and my brother were kids at the time. And part of the intent of the business was to allow us to have the income for us to go to a private school. They wanted us to have a good setup. So they actually named it B&W Machine Works after myself and my brother. What else do we call it? So they called it that.
I love it.
So yeah, I grew up around the smell of coolant. They got a little bit of childhood labor out of us here and there, but they paid us a little bit for it. Putting screws in parts. But yeah, it grew from there. We ended up moving into an industrial complex in, I don't know the year, but I was in middle school or high school at the time. Bought a second unit or rented a second unit. And then in the 20 teens, we grew to the extent that we moved into our own building.
Oh, nice.
And somewhere in that path, my brother joined the company. So he engineering major and decided he didn't like his career trajectory and said, hey, this is interesting. So the first week they had him there, they're like, we don't really have work for you to do. So they had him painting, actually, just to help. They had him like, hey, go over here and paint this, do this little thing. But he ended up excelling.
At more than painting? Excelling at more than painting?
much more than just painting. So they started him on a machine. He had a good aptitude for programming and fixturing, and really fell in love with it. And they took off on the technical side. The technical problem solving, helping out the engineers of our customers, they were just doing amazingly. But as the business grew, as we scaled, we started to hit a lot of challenges. My mom was actually working from home way before it was cool to do it. So she started working from home for the business. It might have been 2010-ish. And there was a lot of paper transfer, a lot of things like that. So when I showed up in 2022, I was in the military, got out, and then showed up in 2022. She had lots of papers, working weekends, working 10-hour days, just trying to keep up with everything. So the technical side was there, but all the other stuff was just completely kind of drowning. And we were surviving. She had her methods, but we definitely were hitting our limitations. And then that's kind of what took me to me joining the company. We got ProShop in 2024. So 2 years of the transfer and then ProShop in 2024.
Got it. Okay. And your motivation for bringing that on was to help your mom not die with paperwork?
Well, I can't take all the credit. My brother's actually the one who said we need to actually have an ERP.
Okay.
So when I showed up, it was all papers, filing cabinets, paper routers, our prints had coffee stains on them or coolant stains. It was, the classic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when I showed up, I knew in order for me to be a remote worker for the company as well, I knew that I needed to find a way of being able to contribute value while being remote. And I knew that if we were 100% paper, 0% chance of that happening. So my first focus, the first 2 months I was there, I worked from my mom's home actually.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that time was helping her out with certain things. But part of it was just transferring our analog database to a digital database. So I love Excel. It's near and dear to my heart. I love formulas. I love all that stuff. And I felt really comfortable with it. So I actually took a shot at making our own ERP. I didn't know what an ERP was, but I knew the concept of it needed to exist. So I ended up, over time building it out, started off with here's all our open jobs and here's the schedule, and started tying everything in together. Here's what's at finishers.
All in Excel?
Yes, all in Excel. Yeah,
okay.
A lot of it's that.
Oh, I know.
I got, yeah, and it was, man, you change one thing and then you have to think of the implications on the other sheets. So it was a lot of maintenance on my part. And I think the only reason I was able to do that was because I had some allies at the shop who I could rely on, who I could listen to, I could talk to, I could trust. We were thinking kind of the same things, so we could get on the same page. So we just used Microsoft 365, like share, Teams, and then Excel documents, so it was all live. But yeah, we ended up doing that. I had a whole bunch of file trees. So every customer part had, the part, and then it was folders for here's prints, here's quality issues, here's shipping documents. So it was kind of that framework.
That's cool.
And that tree.
That's
cool.
I
mean, we were just trying to make it work and trying to have it organized. And we ended up starting to hit the limitations of the Excel sheets naturally. And my brother was like, we gotta get an ERP, I think. And he's like, I think it's time. We can't keep adding more and more to this. It's slowed down on certain times. It's very dependent on internet speed and everything else. So I think that's kind of what led us to, okay, we got to start shopping around. And eventually I had to give my baby that I put all that work into, but I knew it was the right move. I knew it's like, I put a lot of hours into this, but I knew it was the right move to get everyone on the same page, to have something that took in the lessons learned from other shops and lessons that are bigger than us, from shops that are bigger than us, and say, as we scale, this solution includes the problems that we haven't faced yet, that we know we're going to face. And why not pick a software or a path in which that's kind of cleared away from us a little bit, as opposed to having to learn it the hard way every time Wes adds a new tab. So, and it was the right call for sure.
Huh. Yeah, I like that idea that solving problems we haven't even faced yet, based on the wisdom and experience from others that have. That's a cool and really insightful way to think about it.
Yeah.
So tell me about the process of finding the ERP.
Oh man. Well, I mean, it starts with the Google search. I think, Google search, and then I think a lot of it was filtering through solutions versus solutions that are designed for a company like us. So I think that there was a lot of options out there of solutions that are more broad, less precise for our type of use case. And I think we recognize that finding one that is more of a match of description of how we would use it was kind of the methodology. So it just really started with, setting up appointments and then kind of working through, meetings and demos and kind of seeing what works there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you obviously ran across ProShop at some point during that research.
Yes.
And you guys, I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but you're AS9100, you serve aerospace, defense, and probably pretty diversified, but that was probably high on your list, that compliance and making sure everything really kind of fit.
To be perfectly honest, we weren't thinking about that yet.
Really?
Even though it was only a year and change ago, we kind of just got lucky with that. I think we really were thinking of it in terms of data synchronization, organization, cutting out repetitive steps, and then also cutting out the need for transfer of data and getting stuck in places. We AS9100 was a idea to solution pretty quickly, I think, for us. But I think we just got lucky with the compliance aspect. I will say, go ahead.
Oh, just to clarify, were you AS prior to getting ProShop, or have you gotten it subsequently?
No, we got it. We got it subsequently. So we got it
got it.
actually
Okay.
just 2 months ago, I believe, was our stage 2. We got our little certificate. So it's been very recent. We got AS, and I will say we had the idea of getting AS 9100 back when I had my old solution, and I just knuckled my way through it. I was like, all right, I'm just going to start knocking out some of the grind work, and I had the gap analysis, and I was like, oh my God, I am way overwhelmed with this right now. I'm not, because I've had no experience going through it. So
Sure.
it did feel insurmountable when we were sitting at that spot. And really the path that got us there was a combination of getting lucky having ProShop and then also hiring a quality manager, actually making that move to have someone. Our quality inspector was not going to be able to take the time aside to really properly manage this. So got a quality manager in, and then myself and him. He had no ProShop prior experience, but man, was he he was singing the praises pretty short into it. We worked with with you guys working through that, and it was we honestly had to during the process, we realized this after a few iterations, but we had our own idea of how to get to certain objectives. And we realized that sometimes if we just stop, take a deep breath and listen and say, okay, what's the solution that's baked into this product? That was so much easier. And you say, okay, this actually makes way more sense if we just, actually listen and we work through and we say, okay, how does this all integrate? So that was pretty cool, saying, okay, if we just work through this, it actually makes a lot more sense. And it's good because he'd done a few AS certifications in the past. So it was nice having him there to kind of bring us, sober when it came to what do we actually need to do.
Yeah, that background and context. Super cool. So I want to just ask about the file tree structure. So you had this structure that you made. You said like part number and then like setup notes and shipping and whatever. When you saw the ProShop file tree structure, were you like, these guys are thinking the same way that I think about it?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It was what it felt like was if I was able to get with a few other people who really understood that, who like could actually take that idea and turn it into something. And I was like, this is the mature version of what I was trying to build. I didn't even realize it, but it literally was like, even I had a pretty in-depth Excel sheet for quoting, and there was a lot of logic that when I first started, we were doing number of hours on the machine times shop rate. And that was pretty much plus material cost. And that was how we quoted jobs. So we ended up, starting to include labor percentage in there. And we were working some other things with the shell that I had. And then I saw your guys and I was like, oh my God, this is like like I said, the more mature version of that. So yeah, it was very cool to see, open the K drive and say, oh, this is the same kind of thing, that we were doing.
That's fun. Yeah. I've heard people say like, they were kind of doing what you're doing, trying to figure it out. And then they see this and they're like, oh, I feel so seen. Like there's other people that have had the same struggles and know what I'm going through right now. And they,
yes. Oh, it's so true. Yeah, no, it was definitely, it was a little cathartic going through the onboarding process and kind of getting to talk to a few people. I had some questions and we brought in a few people who kind of built out that process. So I was like, okay, you can feel my pain in this process of trying to get it right. But going back to like continuous improvement and all that, like I can see that where you guys landed was a process of getting to a spot, asking questions, and then including that in the revised version and just going through that iteratively to get to a better spot. And we were doing the same thing, but we were just, way, way further back. And I was doing a lot of it while trying to do everything else. So it was tough.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing all that. That's very fun. So once you went through that onboarding process, and maybe you just describe a little bit about that, who you worked with, how for those that don't know how we onboard with ProShop, what was that like?
We had a great guy. I'm not sure if he's still onboarding, but we really connected pretty early on. And that I think really helped because we established a great rapport, because the onboarding process is a lot of learning on our part of just getting rid of our old framework and just saying, okay, I have a problem that I think is unique to me. It's probably not nearly as unique that I think it is. So just kind of being patient through that process and saying, okay. So, I mean, it was great. We did it. We had meetings every week. Every week felt like we were making forward progress. I think one of the most intimidating aspects of onboarding was, how do I go from a blank slate to a functioning ERP?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really just there was a time period where we were kind of doing both at the same time, but it wasn't nearly as long as I thought it was going to be. And honestly, that time where we were doing the two things at the same time, we learned a few lessons about how we want to tweak and do things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a nice trial period. And then, wheels came up November 11th, 2024, I believe it was. And that's when it was. Yeah, I'm just realizing that it feels like it's been much longer, but it's only a year. Holy cow, we've come far. But it was a great process though. I mean, we ended up having, we had our input in the direction. So, our onboarding process wasn't completely rigid. If we wanted to kind of take a different direction, saying, hey, I personally love estimating. That's kind of where I put a lot of my thought into, is getting the best understanding of cost, so then I can turn around and truly understand where my floor is with giving quotes, as opposed to just making a guess based off what the customer is expecting. So that's really where my passion was in the process of onboarding. And man, they really.
Who was the person? Who was the person?
I had Wade. Wade.
Yeah. Wade's awesome.
It was great. But yeah, they did a great job humoring me, being like, I want to look into this. I want to, how do we calculate this? I got some, Excel sheets on how to calculate different rates. I mean, yeah, it was great. And then we would bring in members of our team that were relevant to different aspects of what we were learning that week. So if it's going into scheduling, bringing in someone for that, quality, bringing in someone for that. So I mean, it was pretty smooth. I think, I remember someone being like, man, this is taking forever. I thought we were going to be up by now. But then we realized it was not nearly as long as we thought it was. It's just because we get so impatient and so excited that we're like, I just want to be doing it now. And then in hindsight, it was like we were just cooking with everything. So it was smooth.
Cool. And how many folks do you have at B&W?
Yeah, we're up to 15 now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Nice. Very good. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's talk about that transition of like getting rid of the paper travelers and telling the machinists, all right, here's what you're going to do. Did you put computers at each machine? Just some of the logistics around how that rolled out.
Yeah. Well, we kind of, because of the nature of moving from pure paper with, clear folder that goes out to the shop, everything comes out, goes back in, they handwrite minutes per piece and setup, and then any issues, and then pass it back, and it gets uploaded, scanned and uploaded was the old way. So moving from that to ProShop, I think we reduced the need for. That was instantaneous. One of the things that we did to set them up for success was each machine. So not even each machinist, but each machine, I think, has a little. It's like the size of, it's a really small computer. It's like the size of a docking station. It's like a microcomputer. And then we just had that. And then we put 2 monitors vertically on a mount at each machine. So you could have print and then, work order, whatever you're working on.
Yep.
Yeah. So we just did that. I mean, everyone got in pretty quick. They were able to find their work orders and prints. I think the first step was getting them to see everything and then get to see the schedule. And then obviously, all the other steps, such as written description, IPCs, everything else has been a work in progress since.
Sure. One
challenge that I don't know how rare this is, but one challenge we had was we have a very high retention rate at our shop. And a lot of our guys have been there for a while. So they were not used to change. They kind of had their way of doing it. They were like, hey, this is, give me my print. Tell me how much I'm making, materials over there. I need these tools. They'd actually tell us which tools they needed, or they'd tell my dad. And then they'd go get it themselves and do everything themselves. But so I will say I was a little concerned with the adoption of ProShop and the adoption of new methods. But I think we were able to get it pretty quick because the convenience is a good selling. So if it's like, hey, you don't have to wait on things, it's just you can go and look at the print for anything at any time, anything coming up, or you can look at what you got coming up in the pipeline pretty easily. That definitely helped us quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We still have all our old filing cabinets, and I'm pretty sure my mom still looks at hers from time to time just as a sanity check. But they're not very much. They're more so used as an archive, or if there's a certain thing that I want to go find from before
years ago.
Go.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, but your mom, her remote work is just like a few miles away from the shop, and your remote work is a few states away from the shop, right?
Yes, exactly. So I don't have the luxury of just popping by. I mean, I wish I wish I could walk through a portal and walk into the doors of the facility every day. It's great being there. I mean, I will say being remote's nice because you get a ton of, work done, but it's limiting when it comes to some other things. So,
of course.
But yes, it's definitely different challenges. Also, she lives with someone who goes into the shop every day, my dad. So she's getting any kind of transfer of documents or things, and then also conversations every night. But yes, I'm about 6.5 hours away from the facility.
Got it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so beyond estimating, maybe share a little bit more about what your specific role is.
Yeah. Man, my goal when I showed up was my mom had like 4 or 5 like jobs that she was doing. Mm-hmm. And my goal was to try to get that job from her and then make it into a position that someone could understand and do at the facility, and then try to get it to someone and also get all the information in their hands so they can do it instead of waiting on information. So I think that's kind of, if I had to describe my role, that's probably it, is trying to get some of that stuff and just pushing it to the right person and then smoothing out all the inconsistencies across that. So I'm still pretty heavily involved in estimating. I still do, invoicing. I look at the shipping and, make sure we shipped what we're invoicing and just confirm all that. So I do that. A few other small little, I call them like hamster wheel tasks, where you're just, if you're like, you want to feel productive, you just do these things and then you feel like you've done some things. But I'm trying to step back and to step into other roles that are enabling the big picture as much as I can. I think that's really my goal. Mm-hmm. But the hamster wheel tasks are they're very comforting, because you're just like, hey, I did something. And it's 9:00 and I did some things and I know I'm good. Instead of spinning your wheels on some other thing.
That makes a ton of sense. Have you read the book, The E-Myth?
No, I haven't.
What you're describing, what you're doing and setting up is exactly the E-Myth. Huh. So you have to check it out. And regular listeners will probably tune out at this point because I talk about it so much. But The E-Myth is a book that I read years and years ago, and it influenced not only the way we grew ProCNC, but actually what we thought about the way ProShop should work. And the E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth. And that myth is that someone that is good at doing the craft of a business, of like machining, for example, like a machinist, will be good at running a machine shop, right? And you probably know, with the strengths of your mom and the strengths of your dad, that your dad's strengths alone could not run a whole machine shop, right? And yes. So part of the premise of this book is, if you take that, that entrepreneur that's a really good technician in their craft, but you then build systems for the people that are going to go into all the different roles as that one entrepreneur starts taking off all the different hats, right? The estimating hat and the machinist hat and the programmer hat and the invoicing person's hat. That you need to, define the job, define the role, define the systems and the processes and the tools that each person will do, and then start replacing yourself as you put people in those roles. And pretty soon you have this idea, and the real crux of the whole book is, if you build what he calls a franchise prototype. So imagine you were going to franchise your business and open 100 locations. What would you have to put in place to be able to turnkey open one over here, one over there, and everyone that you hire knows exactly what they're supposed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they know the tools and the systems to do it, and they know what good looks like. But what you were describing there, without ever having read that book, is exactly that concept. You're like, I'm going to outline the role, put in the tools, and then start handing it to other people so we can work on the more strategic, important, big picture things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's also another cool element to that I think for me, one of the things that I really enjoy doing is giving paths to elevate people in their career trajectory if they're interested. Some people may say, I like doing this thing. I want to do it until whatever age, and I don't want to have to worry about anything. But other people, if you're lucky, they say, hey, I'm hungry. I want to go learn this. I want to go try this. I want to go take on more responsibility. So one of the things I always try to do, to the extent that I can, is ask people if you could be doing something else, if you could be jumping into another element of the company. Well, what's your wish list? And that's kind of nice because I kind of say, okay, this person has a desire in this area. How do I try to set up that role in a way in which they're going to succeed? And if they wanted to pass it off to someone else, as if they grew even more, that next person would succeed. So yeah, that's totally, I think it's from both ends of seeing everything's clogged over here. And then also there's a hunger on the other side as well. And that can help elevate people. Build up resumes if they want to go, if they want to stay. Obviously, we'd love to have them grow with us. So, yeah,
I love that way of thinking about it. That's a way to have good longevity with your team. Very cool.
Yeah, that's the goal.
So I know that with your mom working remote largely, the workflow on paper might have been a little more different than most shops where everyone is on site. But maybe just kind of talk about what changed in the process from the way you used to do it before to once you switched to ProShop, in terms of quoting the work, winning a job, making sure that again got disseminated out to the programmers and purchasing, and making sure things showed up on time, and you're setting up the shop to make those parts.
Yeah, I mean that was an evolution for sure, and we were in a very fast pace. I mean, I was publishing new revisions of Excel sheets like every other month, I felt like, or I was making tweaks to the core behind certain things. Yeah. So, I mean, when I first showed up, it was quote it, maybe if you have addition, subtraction, multiplication signs in Excel, that's how much you use Excel, but otherwise it's just calculator. You get the email from the customer, you quote the job. There would be a stack of folders on my dad's desk, and that was the top one is the hottest, the bottom one's the least hot, and work your way from the top to the bottom. And then there'd be a printed out email in there. So we ended up moving on from that to more digital. So we had the method that I kind of got us to was we get the email. I developed, actually, we still kind of use this. I have a quote tracker, I call it, where you have all the RFQs in each row. And then you have the status of different things like machining material, all that kind of stuff across, color coded. Mm-hmm. Everyone can see it. So that kind of helps us track what do we got on our plate. It didn't exist before. And then we have the quote shell. So if I get a new part, I'd have to fill out the quote shell in its entirety because we didn't have templates. I mean, I hadn't even thought of templates, honestly. So I just had a blank template quote shell that I filled out manually. We then got the quote shell. We'd get the PO. And then from there, I would enter into our Excel ERP thing. I'd enter in all the data I possibly could into one tab. And then that would be like the base data that other formulas would pull. I would then, I would have to add it to our schedule. So we had a separate tab, which is our schedule. So I'd be pulling in data from the quote. There's always the risk when you're transferring from thing to thing to thing, compounding human error risk. I'm not the most detail oriented sometimes with some of those things. So if I fat finger something, our production guy would be like, what do you mean this is 600 hours? And I'd be like, I'm sorry, it's actually 60. So we always had that risk. And then, it gets on the schedule. You're manually moving items around on the schedule in there. We liked the display. It was a very nice schedule from a display perspective, but it took a lot of manual moving around. And then, that would kind of drive things. It would just move its way through. But like I said, there's always the manual entry of things. And then that Excel document, our ERP, was disjointed from our folder. So the one thing that always would kill me is pulling in old data, old insights, quality concerns, or continuous improvement suggestions or changes into our next time we're quoting. That was always a struggle because I'd be looking at old routers that were handwritten and scanned. I'd be looking at old notes, all that kind of stuff, and having to bring it back in for the next estimate and hope I caught everything. And then not only that, but then I get that through, and then the next time we come around, it's the same thing. So it definitely made it tough in that regard. So at the shop, they'd print out the routers, they'd print out, get the print, get the setup sheet, go retrieve all that stuff, put it in a little packet, put it up on the wall. Hey, this is the stuff that needs to go out. And then they'd bring it out to the machinist. And that's kind of how. And then at the end, things would pull up in the quality room oftentimes because we didn't have in-process checks. It was first article check, and then also check when you can, ask questions when you can. It was a very manual process. And then so we get things kind of backlog piled up in the QC room, and then as they flowed through QC, they'd get out the door. And then, so that was, I'm probably missing some elements, but that's generally our process.
And maybe just share a little bit about I'm sure the timeline varied considerably based on the project and its urgency, but just the steps that all took versus now what it takes when you estimate, put in an order and issue a work order.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing it, so it'd be a good chunk of my day. And that's part of the reason why I wasn't able to my hamster wheel was big at the time because I was doing all this stuff, getting everything going. Yeah, I mean, it would take, if I had a PO that had like 7 or 8 different parts on it, man, that would just be like, okay, or if I had an RFQ that had that, or if I had a PO, it was always just this big push. It would take a lot of time. And there also was a little bit of an arcane art to the Excel sheet formulas, which created a little bit of a barrier for value adding from other people at times. ProShop it was nice because we were able to have it so people understand. If you understand the part level, you understand the estimate generally. If you understand that, you kind of understand work orders. So the logic kind of flows up and down really nice where people can look at something and say, hey, that's off, or this is so I think it really opened the doors for contributions from across the team a lot better. But yeah, I mean, it was very manual. There was a lot of paying attention to details or catching this or double checking that. One other thing I haven't mentioned, but this is funny, and it worked really well. But the method that my mom used very heavily was sticky notes. I mean, we must have gone through like just piles of sticky notes constantly. And it was every print would have different sticky notes on it. And then, a little arrow of, hey, don't forget about this. We had this quality issue. And it worked, but like that was a transition for sure. So yeah, I mean, it took a lot of time. It definitely, and I think, yeah.
Have you seen the 2 little short video clips that we made about running a shop on Post-it notes?
No, I haven't.
I will have to share them with you. They are, okay. One is like, running a machine shop on Post-it notes. And the other one, it's titled The Sneeze That Delayed 1,000 Jobs. And they're both like 30-second, pretty well produced, that we shot in a machine shop here in our town. And they were funny. And they feature my son as one of the main actors in it. So I will share those with you.
That's great.
But I'm sure you can relate.
Say,
yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's also one risk that we had prior that we no longer have is, I'll tell a quick story. So back when, I think this was in the 2010s, I was in the military and I deployed overseas, and I had to do something with my cat. So I gave my cat to my parents to take care of. And he was very famous for, my mom would have all the papers, the routers, the prints laid out on the table. And he was such a fan of just going up and just knocking all of them off the table. And it was all out of order and it was a whole mess. And she's like, I can't deal with this. Like, he just goes after my stuff. So we've gotten rid of the cat risk with ProShop. So I will say that's unintended.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just being playful and like,
Oh, he loved it. Yeah. It was just
creating chaos. Yeah. That's funny. That's another version of the video we should make.
Yes.
so the process has obviously gotten simplified, but has also shortened the process, like from the time you receive an order to the time it's ready to go. Can you just describe some of that?
Yeah, I think it definitely shortens the unnecessary bottlenecks, I will say. I mean, I think every shop has its bottlenecks of,
Mhm.
hey, you got a whole bunch of quotes. We got to get through them all. Or I've
Sure.
got a backlog on a machine, or I can't get this material in, or my finisher says it's now 3 weeks instead of 2.
Oh, of course.
So we always
Absolutely.
have all of those unforeseen events that will slow down lead time of start to end. But I will say, this has definitely cut out a lot of the extra steps or unnecessary delays in that process.
Mhm.
I will say, so I don't have a good data point of the change in lead time that we've
Yeah, no problem.
experienced, but
A lot of
I will
times
say, yeah,
that's not a very carefully tracked metric, like when we receive
yes,
an order, it's 5 days until it actually shows up on the shop floor, whether they're ready for it or not. Right. And,
yes.
and now it's 1 day or 2 days or whatever, but yeah, it's,
That we actually do. I think we actually can say,
hmm,
previously, when I first showed up, I think that there were items we were struggling so much with paperwork that I found we had POs that were coming up due that we hadn't put on the schedule yet.
oh, wow.
Because it was backlogged that much. And granted, we were kind of a victim of our own success of just getting lots of POs and working through stuff. But I think, yeah. So, but what I can say now is I get a PO and they're getting a confirmation form from us generated from ProShop that precisely matched the PO we have in the system within 24 hours
Mhm.
every time. I think that,
And that
that's
means
the
it's
reason
on the schedule and everything,
yes,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few cases in which we wouldn't create work orders if it's on hold for some
Sure.
reason. So maybe
Understood.
there's a first article that needs to be approved before we hit production. So production, but it's
Understood.
easy because you just have it on hold PO, and then when you get news the FAI came back, you just change it, activate, create, you're good to go. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a few clicks versus before when I would get that news, I'm like, okay, here we go. Got to create a whole new thing. So it just pulls it right off the part level.
Very cool. I love it. And that valuable time gives the manufacturing floor more time to do things and not be as behind schedule. Because I imagine in the first scenario, the due date's coming up and you haven't even put it on the schedule yet. Once they get it, you're like, this is on fire. And they're like, we'll do the best we can, but
Yes.
but
Yeah.
we can only do so much.
Yeah. There's a few unintended benefits as well. Is the sooner you can get more stuff on the schedule, the more efficiently you can order material, the more you can kind of make good decisions when buying the bomb items you need.
Mhm.
And you're not just being like, oh man, this is about to go on the machine 2 days from now. We got to get this in now. So it's helped with that quite a bit as well.
Did you ever even track how much you were spending on like overnight shipping of tooling and materials?
No, we did not. We did not. And I think that materials has gotten so much better, but tooling, I think we're working through the implementation of that right now.
Oh, the tool module. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's one of those things where we kind of put it off when we started saying, hey, that looks great, but maybe we'll wait. And
That's super
I think
common. Yeah.
yes, I kind of been picking up on that. And we kind of had our light. We actually got a few extra hours of ProShop training. I think it was a few months after, maybe even earlier. I think it was earlier this year. And through that training, through that exploration of things that we weren't using, we determined, yeah, we got to start using the tool module. This makes a lot of sense. I think our big checks or the big items that we are still working on is getting pre-processed checks down, really clean, and then tooling is another, and then still trying to work on really clean written descriptions and sequence detail and all the stuff that inhabits the actual part level stuff. I think if those guys saw how cool it could be to get a part and say, hey, this is what you're making and all that stuff's in there, I think that's kind of what's going to help them with that. But yeah, tooling, we're working on it. And that's been a challenge, but we got a lot of the tooling in, and I think we're right on the cusp of actually getting that clean.
Cool.
I had to do a bit of salesman. I had to sell people on that for sure.
Internal
but I think
selling.
I've been
Yep.
successful. Yes,
Yep,
for
yep.
sure. That was a hard one.
Not a surprise. Not a surprise. Do you have a programmer or programmers that program it like they mostly program, or your guys like set up program their own stuff?
We have a programmer. So
Okay.
that's my dad does some of the fixturing determination, all that, and then we have a programmer as well who does all that. And then the guys are all of our machinists. We're starting to hire some younger guys, which is great. Entry level, get them going. And they've been some of the best about some of the pro shop. IPCs, they're on it with some of that stuff, which is great. But most of our machinists, with the exception of one or two guys, they're setup and production machinists. So they set their own jobs up, produce them,
and run them.
Running a few machines at the same time, kind of balancing.
Nice.
But yeah.
How much of your work you guys do is repeat versus brand new part numbers?
I'd say like 80-20 repeat to new.
Oh, nice. That's a good balance. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I feel like the new ones always come in chunks. It's always like nothing. And then, okay, we got to hit all this now. So, and then things are turning red on my little tracker of like, hey, I've got this stuff. And so,
yeah,
but yeah, it's a lot of repeat. But then we've got that new demand as well.
Now you mentioned IPCs, in process check, and you said prior that you weren't really doing that, or at least not in a documented way. Can you just describe how some of the quality aspects of what you're doing maybe have improved or changed?
Yeah. I mean, holy cow! It is, it is such a necessary change, I think, that we've gone through, and I think we were really good about getting parts that the customers were form, fit, and function, and they're solid, and we know, hey, these are going to be okay. They're going to accept these. But identifying those traits and catching them early on was something we were not good at. So if we did have an issue, a lot of times it would just pile up and it would say, oh, wow. Instead of, if we were checking every 15th piece, we would have caught this in only 15 bad parts. Now we've got 150 bad parts or parts that need rework.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, I mean, that process, I think, and that's a cultural change, I think, that we had to go through. We even had a weird scenario where one of the machine operators was like putting in data for an IPC and it was coming up red. And he's like, no, but it's good. It's always been good. It can be out here. But then our quality manager was like, the print says it's got to be here. Like, this is your tolerance. So there was a bit of, and the customer had already approved that deviation, but there wasn't record of it. And there wasn't, our quality manager's like, I don't see that anywhere. So we realized, due to the tribal knowledge we had, and kind of that machinist had been making that part for 10 to 12 years, I think. So he knew that part incredibly well. But if someone else were to run that machine, they would have no idea. So I think that IPCs and a lot of the other stuff has made it so we can start to, one of the new things that I'm wanting us to do, and I think a lot of people are on board, is starting to open us up for cross training, start opening up. So, hey, if you want to go learn the Swiss when that guy's off his shift, transfer, get his notes, get everything. So I think it's really helping open up the door for people if they want to learn a new type of machining, or if they, we can kind of bounce around people as needed. So
that's cool.
Yeah. It was IPCs were definitely they took a little bit of a lift to get us to where we needed to be because of that cultural barrier.
So parts where there's tribal knowledge that the customer will accept them just fine. There's those scenarios, and then there's the ones where you said where you might scrap 150 parts because you actually were making bad ones you didn't realize. Do you have any numbers about like the scrap rate, or how much is improved or savings you've seen?
I think it's a good amount for sure. I don't have a good number on that.
Yep.
We have good numbers now because ProShop has great queries and reports for that. But we unfortunately did not track cost of quality. It was, each incident almost felt like an isolated event where it was, okay, how do we mitigate this? How do we fix this with the customer? Is it a rework? Is it make more? Will they accept it short for this if we only scrap this? So I think It's hard for me to know that because we didn't have the best data on
That's
that.
a totally fair answer. That's so common.
Yeah.
That's so common
Yeah.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably version like 1.7 where I even added nonconformance tracking to the old ERP we had. I had a sheet, and it would actually. The funny thing was, if it, little side note, if when I would go to put the data in, I had conditional formatting that if there was an NCR in the past, however many months, it would turn it red, saying, "Hey, go look at that. Go make sure you're thinking about whatever solution you had."
Very cool.
So yeah, it was. It definitely was. It was a process to get to where we were.
Well, that gives me a glimpse into the sophistication of those sheets that you were building. If you're doing conditional formatting on
Yes.
prior NCRs, that's actually pretty darn cool. So
Yeah. There was a lot of conditional formatting. There was a lot of referencing, X lookup. All the indexing, all that kind of stuff. There was a few hidden ones. Man, those things, the hidden tabs where it had all the background calculations and data. Those were pretty crazy at a certain point.
That's too funny. Can you just elaborate on any other areas that just got easier, got better?
Let's see. I would say the process of shipping hygiene, I would say, or cert shipping hygiene, and the cleanliness of being able to quick reference all that kind of stuff and go back and say, I think traceability is, I love the traceability function of knowing if something goes into stock and it gets pulled later on, I've got all the certs right there with it. When someone who doesn't really work with computers a ton, but knows how to do the steps, goes in and needs to print shipping documents, they can just go in, print it, and it pulls all the certs in. They don't have to go digging around in file trees or digging around and saying, I mean, at one point we would go back and reference the shipping. When did we receive this in, and what cert, what's the date on the cert? So we'd have to like match dates up at a certain point. We had good record, but it was like a game of being like, okay, this is when this cert's from. It's this one. So I think that's been a great thing, and it's kind of opened up the doors for individuals who are, less familiar with how we store everything to be able to just pull it and ship it.
Very cool. Yeah, that helps reduce bottlenecks at shipping if someone that normally does that is out for an appointment or sick for the day or whatever. So yeah, that's good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
We often hear our clients talk about that accountability has just improved a bunch once they put ProShop in, when everyone can see who checked off what and what date time they put something in. Or do you feel like that's also gotten better?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. And I think we're still on a journey when it comes to that. One thing that I would classify as a 75% to where I would want us to be on the shop floor's time tracking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're like 20% the way there when it comes to shipping equality. So we're still working on that stuff. But the big thing was time tracking on the shop floor. So we truly understand, because that's the biggest cost driver.
Of course. And
we're able to get them to buy in, because we're not doing it to look at them and say, oh, you weren't doing this. It's more so to understand our costs. But I think the one thing I think is what it's done is people take their what they're saying a little bit more seriously at times. I think with the paper routers, it was so easy just to say, oh, we coded 3 minutes a piece. Here you go. I wrote the 3 in. It was 3 minutes again this time. Or, oh, we quoted a 6-hour setup, 6-hour setup. And I think a lot of times, because they were writing all that information in at the very end of the job, if they set up 3 days ago, they're like, I don't know, man, like it was like 6 hours, I think. So they just write in the 6 hours and send it. So the fact that that reporting is much closer to when it's happening, I think has really increased accountability. And they say, and they can put notes in there saying, hey,
sure,
I was, this is why it took longer. This is why, whatever the case is.
Yeah,
so I
huge.
think they feel more heard, I think, too, where they were just writing something on a piece of paper and it was going into a back room before. Now they know, like, hey, someone cares about that. Someone's looking at it. Someone's using that. Our next step is we want to look at work orders as they're closing out and then have a complete analysis, profitability, and then also, did we do all the things we wanted to do on that work order? We actually just hired a new position to help with that. But I think getting that feedback as close to when they're putting it in, I think really helps with the accountability, because they're just like, oh, I'm not just standing out here at my machine doing something. I'm part of an organization. So I think that's really helped.
Okay. So you're only about a year into it, but would you describe what you've been through in the last year as transformational? And can you imagine if you had not done it? Where would you guys be at?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's very, I feel like there's layers of transformationality to it, of like, wow, we've really done what we wanted to do. And then, wow, we did the next layer of what we want. And it's been like waves of transformational change to the organization. I can't imagine. I mean, we wouldn't be able to take on the new endeavors we've been taking on if we were using our old system. I don't think I could have taken the time aside to get into government work, to do AS 9100, to start kicking off marketing and sales seriously as opposed to passively, like all of the other stuff we've been doing. We wouldn't have the time or energy. We would have been too busy just trying to make sure that the customer's requirements get into our system accurately and out the door. So yeah, I mean, I don't know where we would have been. Probably doing a lot of the same stuff. We've also, we had some external events affect our revenue, from customer moving overseas, customer sales dropped off. So things outside of our control that were also a shock to our company. But I think weathering that also has been, this has helped us weather that as well.
Wow. Well, that is meaningful to me right there. And I'm grateful that you guys took the leap with us, and that we have been able to help this family business, to do what you said, focus on the things that are big picture and move the company forward, as opposed to being just stuck in the details and making sure quality requirements get flowed down properly. Right. So
yes.
That's awesome.
No, we're very appreciative as well.
Wow, it's fantastic. So if someone wants to learn more about B&W Machine Works, where would you direct them to go?
I would direct them to our website. I think they can find us there, and on LinkedIn as well. Our website, if you just Google our company, B&W Machine Works Inc., you'll find us. You'll find our website and our LinkedIn that way.
Yep. bnwmachine.com.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make sure some of these links are on the website page. So, well, Wes, thank you so much for this time. This has been just a delight. And again, thank you for trusting us with your business. I'm glad you guys are seeing results, and look forward to watching your journey as you continue to, push the company forward. It's very cool.
Thanks.